All right, let's get started here with 1.3. This is going to be 1.3a. We're going to do the first three objectives of quadratic equations. Okay, so here's our formula for an quadratic equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, and c are real numbers, and a is not going to be 0. We have to have the x squared in there. Let me get my pen going here. Go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is solve quadratic equations by factoring, and then we'll check on how we check them by graphing. So x squared equals 6 minus x. We're going to bring this over, so it's x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. And then let's go ahead and factor that like we know how to do. This is going to be a plus 3, and this is going to be an x minus 2. And since 0 times anything is 0, we get to set both of these factors equal to 0. So x plus 3 is 0, x minus 2 is 0, so x is negative 3, x is 2. Sorry about that pen, that's a little messy. X equals negative 3, x equals 2. Okay, we can also check this graphically if we go to our graphing calculator, and I've got the online version of the graphing calculator. If you graph it, you're going to get a graph that looks like this, and look at where it crosses. It crosses at 2, it crosses at negative 3. So again, you could do this graphically, or you could do it algebraically. All right, let's try problem 11. Pause the video, try 11, and then we're moving on. Okay, let's try one more here. We're going to factor again. This is going to be x minus 2 and x minus 2 equals 0. And so this is going to be x minus 2 equals 0 for both of them. Don't have to do it both times. Just do it once. X equals 2. Right? Just one solution, even though we should be looking for 2 zeros. But what's going on here? Since that 2 is repeating, we only have one solution. We can see that graphically if we go to our graph here. This is the graph of x squared minus 4x plus 4. You'll see here it doesn't cross the x-axis, it just touches it. All right, so what we have here is what's called multiplicity, and that's just repeat zeros. So the 0 here is 2 and 2, right? It would be 2 and 2. We're not going to write it twice, we're just going to write it once. X equals 2. All right, so use what we just learned. Try problem 23. All right, so we'll keep going here. Sorry about that. The computer froze for a second. We'll do objective 2, and now we're going to solve quadratic equations using the square root method. So let me get that pen tool back. There we go. All right, so if x squared equals p and p is greater than or equal to 0, then x equals plus or minus the square root of p. So if we're solving for x, and we do the square root, we get a positive or a negative answer. So the first one here is very straightforward. If x squared is 7, then x is equal to plus or minus square root 7. Let's see what happens on an equation where it's not just x by itself, though. X plus 3 squared. So here's what we're going to need to do. We're going to square root both sides. The squared and the square root cancel, so on the left, we're left with x plus 3 equals, now here's where it gets a little tricky, 3 or negative 3. How do we solve this? We need to minus 3 to both sides, so x is equal to either 0, 3 minus 3, or it's equal to negative 6. All right. Now we have to be careful here. We're going to check for our extraneous solutions. Is 0 plus 3 a positive? Yes. Is negative 6 plus 3 a positive? It's not, but since we're going to square first, we're going to be okay here. So x is going to be 0 or negative 6, right? Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3, but if you square it, you do get 9. So there's your two solutions. All right, try problem 33. All right, last objective here, objective 3. Let's solve quadratic equations by completing the square. So here's a couple examples of what completing the square looks like. If you have x squared plus 4x, if you take 4 and cut it in half, you get 2. If you square that, you get 4. So 4 would be completing the square. Half of 12 is 6. 6 squared is 36. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Half of 1 is a half. A half squared is a fourth. So what we're always going to do to complete the square is take half of your b term, square it, and that's what we're going to add on. Because if we do that, we'll end up with a perfect square. X squared plus 4x plus 4 turns into x plus 2 squared. Plus 12 plus 36 is x plus 6 squared. So here's the rule. If you have x squared plus mx, you're going to add m over 2 squared. You're going to end up with x squared plus mx plus m over 2 squared, and that's going to factor to x plus m over 2 squared. All right, so let's see if we can use that formula and plug it into some problems here. So if we start with y squared plus 8y, half of 8 is 16. So we'll have y squared plus 8y plus 16, and half of the 8 from back here, that was 4. That's going to be your factored answer. Half of 12, that's going to be your factored answer. Half of 12 squared, that's what we're going to add on. All right? So let's see if we can try a problem here. Let's try 37. And this is just right in here, kind of, if you're doing the foiling method, what we're looking for is, what's that missing L piece, the last times the last, that's going to get us a nice perfect square. So see if you can try problem 37 and see what you're going to add on. Okay, so now let's actually do a problem using this method of completing the square. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to get the x squared and the x all by itself, and move any other terms over to the other side. So move the constant to the other side. All right, now let's go about completing our square. What's half of 6? That's 3. And if we square it, we get 9. So this will be add on a 9. But if we do it on one side, we need to do it to the other side. And so now this will factor nicely to x plus 3 squared. And this is equal to 1. We're going to square root both sides. We're going to get x plus 3 equals, now be careful here, 1 or negative 1. So what do we need to do? Let's minus 3. X equals negative 2 or negative 4. That's a negative 4 there. Okay? So by completing the square, we've got our two answers. X is negative 2 or negative 4. All right, go ahead and try 41, problem 41 to wrap up, and that's it for this lesson. All right, good luck with those, and any questions, we'll go over them in class.